All right. Welcome to the Helicopter Podcast. I'm your guy, Halsey Schider, and we are live from Anaheim at HAI right now. We're doing in-person podcast at the Vertical Heli booth. So exciting. And I couldn't ask for a better guest to start the day. David Smith from Robinson. David, how's it going, bud?
Doing great. Great day. Historic day for Robinson. A lot of fun.
It's incredible. What is this experience like right now? Like this second, the big news, you are stepping in as the new CEO, president of Robinson Helicopter Company. Press release today. Just walk me through how you're feeling.
I mean, first, obviously incredibly honored and blessed with the road that's got me here and brought me to cross paths with Kurt and Pete and the team years ago that started this whole journey, I think. It's been an exciting experience to be part of the Robinson family for about a year now. And so that transition was kind of in plan throughout that time. But you never know. These are always things where, it could go a different path as you get involved. But I think overall learning more about the company just made me love it more. The recipe that makes Robinson unique in our industry is one that you can feel every day when you're in the building. And it is the little things that matter that make the company so accessible and so successful all over the world. I think you see it more when you're living in it, and I've enjoyed that immensely. So from today has been exciting. Yesterday we had our first dealer meeting, and it's almost 40 years, right?
Wow.
So as a business, we have a great worldwide dealer network, and we have tended to communicate just individually, point to point, and then occasionally we broadcast message out. But we haven't brought everyone together to get Team Robinson sort of aligned and headed in the same direction. So it was exciting to be able to do that with Kurt and Tim and the team. We had a really good turnout of our dealers. Everyone came out super excited. So the way that we sort of started to progress this message and share that Robinson's in good hands. Robinson has a lot of alignment in the new leadership with Kurt and Tim and the team that have built this business over the years. And I really think that transition is going to feel like upside for all these folks who've invested in the brand over the years. So super excited. Today is just the beginning of a long adventure we have in front of us. So
yeah, it's wild. I couldn't imagine. To me, Robinson is an iconic brand. Yeah. I was part of a dinner the other night with you and Kurt and some other folks.
Yeah.
And we were going around the table talking about kind of the mission profile of Robinson.
Right.
And I guess I was feeling a little shy. I didn't really speak up at the time, but I thought to myself, and I was talking to Sean of engineering, kind of my idea, that the mission for me was Robinson Helicopters made helicopter possible for me.
Right.
And to me, that's like the most incredible mission that I think Robinson has accomplished.
Absolutely.
Without the R-22, the R-44, civilian-trained guys like myself, I don't think would have had a path to be able to affordably and safely learn how to fly helicopters. And it's wild. I would imagine if we walk around the expo and we took a survey of how many people got their start flying the R-22 or the R-44, I mean, it would be a super high percentage.
Absolutely.
So just crazy on that. I'm grateful for Robinson because of that. Obviously, Robinson is a big company, but they've always been a family company.
That's right.
Frank Robinson, started this vision. Yeah. Kurt then has been kind of in the helm. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you're now the first guy that doesn't share the last name. If Frank was here right now, what is the message that you have to Frank about how you're going to continue his legacy?
Yeah, I think I spent a lot of time talking with both Pete, who led engineering up until the end of last year, and with Kurt about the things that really drove Frank's vision of this industry and of all the things that the helicopter can bring to the world. He had a strong commitment to the dealer network. He had a strong commitment to product development and emphasis on simplicity, so keep the aircraft as simple as possible and no simpler, right? So really find that sweet spot. And I think because of those things, he knows that having an engineering background leading Robinson is really important. Kurt was really great about that all the way through. He said, you know, I can do a lot for the business, and he grew the business over these 14 years, took us through pandemics and, you know, the financial crisis and a bunch of challenging headwinds to the industry, and navigated all that successfully and continued to grow the business, right? So Kurt did some amazing things, but he constantly reminds me that like his dad wanted an engineer to lead the business, and there's certainly a place for that, and I'm glad that I can help grow the business in that way. And so the product development experience that I have, certifying product in other companies, and the work that I've done to help grow training around the world and modern and kind of newer simulation technologies is, I think, all going to be helpful in the next phase of growth for Robinson. So it is a perfect complementary set of skills that where I have less background, Kurt's been able to mentor me. His legal background really helps understand contracts and structures for the global liability that we have to work through. All great things. So it's been a really nice complementary mix, and I do think that Frank, if he were here today, would be appreciative of having a good blend of sort of the backgrounds that the business now has within its team. You know, not just me, but Sean coming in as a phenomenal leader of the most recent generations of autopilots and avionics development, plus a test pilot himself, and just the right mix for that role as well. So we've added Robin for the marketing and sales and communications.
She's doing great.
Yep. And so we're growing in all the ways that I think will make the business even more successful in the years to come. And I'm confident that Frank would feel the same way. You know?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, big shoes to fill, obviously, with Kurt and Frank.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think they have the right guy at the helm. You know, you and I have got to know each other. Yeah. You have an extensive background. One of the things that you touched on in your talk just now, and some of the stuff that we talked about the other night, was this idea of certification.
Right.
And I know that certification seems to be a bit of a bottleneck for a lot of innovation within the industry. Yeah. And I know that there's new noise in the arena that is, you know, touting this quick path to certification.
Right.
I'm just curious to hear from you with your extensive background of certification. Like, what really does that process look like? Yeah. And what does it mean to Robinson? Sure. What does it mean for you guys moving forward on being able to certify things quickly? Yeah,
so I'll give some examples. I think in the industry, the thing that drives the process certification to be challenging is not the actual requirements themselves. We find that the challenge of certifying product in this space is probably very similar to like medicine or devices, medical devices, those kinds of professions. It is the people that have to be involved to approve are just overloaded. There's a lot of things being put in their projects commitments today at the FAA for certifying small parts, avionics mods, new aircraft types, plus a whole bunch of these new rulemaking efforts around Mosaic or around some of the potential eVTOL and technologies that are on the horizon. Because of that, they're just overloaded. And so the people really are one of the most challenging parts of there's just not enough of the regulator staff to actually action all these things. We find that we can make a lot of safety enhancements without having a considerable burden of certification as minor changes. So things that you take an existing certified R66 and you add something minor to it. We did our cockpit camera. We did our bird strike windows. Those projects were smaller in scope than the horizontal stabilizer that took 3 years to certify, right? So I think when you really look at the challenge, we know from history the burden of proof is critical to safety. It's really important that we don't radically shift the expectation of what the rules are. The rules have proven over a long period of time to be successful. And I don't think the thing that paces innovation is the regulation. It's the resourcing of the regulators. And so I'm a big fan of giving the FAA increased priority in the federal budget, making sure they're well funded and continuously funded so there's not these disruptions and shutdowns that happen. That'll help with certification of new aircraft and technologies. 100%. It also help with airport safety, which is another big risk factor for our operators, helicopter operators, and the world at large for commercial. So I think this is a problem that maybe folks have focused on the law, focused on the regs, when in reality it's the regulators need more support, need more resources.
Yeah, it's always kind of seemed to be that way with a lot of government agencies, right? It's understaffed, high turnover. it's kind of a thankless job.
That's right. It's not attracting always the folks to aspire to be in the regulator space.
No.
Same problem in like financial world. Why the most folks in the financial world aspire to be investment bankers or to be in the sort of trading space, not to be in the SEC. And I think
of course
it's important to have high caliber talent in both
arenas.
That's
yeah,
right.
Totally. Yeah. On certification, obviously, the last time you joined the podcast, it was awesome. Thank you, by the way. Mm-hmm. We had tremendous feedback on the podcast when we talked about the new horizontal stabilizer design.
Yeah.
What has the impact? It's been a few months since we've chatted about it. Yeah. What has been the feedback that you've heard? I've heard nothing but positive, personally.
Same here. Yeah, I mean, the vast majority of folks who've flown them long hours already, we got several folks who've flown them on extended ferries and also a lot of operational roles. They make the comment that it feels more stable, particularly in turbulence where there's a lot of things pushing the aircraft around. It is one of those things where when we do our testing, we tease out as much as we can in the flight envelope, and it is, for most conditions, identical to the previous stabilizer. But there are conditions where you're going to feel slight differences in performance. And like we said in the previous podcast, customers are starting to get the understanding of this is a protection if they get outside the envelope. They really are understanding that point. And I do think it's been giving us a good opportunity to reconfirm to people you should not push the aircraft into the red range on speed and stay out of high turbulence areas. These aircraft are not intended for those operations. So, it's been a great opportunity to discuss that again with our customers and make sure they fully understand. That's why we really have generally had a pretty good safety record these last couple of years as we've started to get the word out on the stabilizer. I think most customers are taking it seriously, that it only helps us understand this low G phenomenon better.
Yeah, it's not to go out and test it.
Don't go and test it. That's right.
And actually, we've talked more. I've talked with you on the podcast. I've talked with others.
Yeah,
we've tried to reiterate that idea. Right.
Oh yeah, very important.
I think it's a great, again, as we talked about on that podcast, just the idea of you guys going through the retesting, seeing that hey, things are actually different than we've kind of always thought.
Right.
And then actually making the decision, because I know that was a big change, and I'm happy to hear that there's been a lot of good feedback on that.
Yeah.
Transitioning kind of back to your new role.
Sure.
Similar, the President of the United States, when they get elected, they always say the first 100 days.
Right.
Right? Like this idea of, in 100 days, I want to accomplish that.
Yeah.
Or this. For you, what does the first 100 days look like at Robinson?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I've been there a year now, so actually I've been able to sort of study and understand the culture and what the business needs to be successful. And so some of the things that you're going to see from us is a focus on serving the customer more precisely and responsively. We have a lot of policies that are meant for big scale, and so delivering parts to all the service centers at large numbers. And so in that process, sometimes we can lose track of specific customers' needs. So two examples are in AOG response, and we really need to be able to offer both 24/7 AOG response, which today we generally are a West Coast U.S.-centric service provider, and if somebody calls after hours, we get it the next morning. That has worked for our 50-year growth, but it isn't as good as we could offer in the future, and I think customers are just accepting of that today. We need to give them better, and so I think that's going to be a focus to give them a better path for AOG support. Another second priority for us is improving factory overhaul work. We have a phenomenal program where we can take an aircraft that either had crash damaged or at the end of their overhaul life and bring it back in the factory, both completely refresh it, reset the aircraft to almost like new, and offer upgrades, things that the customers couldn't get in the field. Safety enhancements, things like cockpit cameras and bird strike windows, all that stuff we can do in the factory overhaul program. But today it's too long. It takes too long for customers to get through the factory overhaul process. So I made some changes to get some resources assigned, focused on that to both help make the process smoother, make the extended network that we rely on in suppliers. So we have, for example, Rolls-Royce engines still get serviced through the Rolls-Royce AMROC network. And for the Lycoming network, we do some of the overhaul work ourselves, but there's also suppliers we depend on. So you can accelerate those processes with just focus, and that's what we're going to do. So we've already made some resource changes and leadership changes to help make that a better business for us. But it's a good example of in the first 100 days, we'd expect customers to see a measurable improvement in responsiveness and a measurable improvement in how we speak to them about their urgency.
Yeah, I mean that's important.
Right.
It's feedback I've heard before, right? Where it's slow at times, and so I think that's great that you're taking that initiative.
Yeah.
we know that the overhauls are currently taking a long time, not just at the factory, by the way.
Everywhere. Yep, that's
everywhere.
Right. That's right.
Even the field overhauls at the service centers take a very long time. I don't necessarily know. It kind of seems like after COVID, everything just started to get longer and longer.
Right.
Overhauls and delivery times. Do you think as an industry we can start to expect to watch those times go in the opposite direction?
Yeah, I think so. We've already seen, as we've increased our output of overhaul kits this last year, we did over 400 deliveries of overhaul kits to the fleet, for field overhauls, plus a bunch that we did in our factory. And that's on top of the 300 aircraft we delivered out into the production world. So you add all that together, we've been increasing production steadily, and the demand is just that high that it still keeps going and adding lead time to the aircraft development. But we have seen a compressing of lead time for the overhaul kits. We think that's going to make a big impact on growing I'll say the success of our service centers and field overhaul network. But we have more work to do. So this is going to be a focus for us as well. So we have a team here at the show actually that represents our new human resources team. I brought in a lead that can help drive talent retention, talent development, and talent acquisition much more directly in programs that will help us grow in our business. That helps us with the actual skill positions that make overhaul kits fly off the shelf and get to our customers. So it's amazing how when you really look at an operation as big as Robinson, there are work centers that are as small as 20 and 30 people that one or two more ads is going to make a huge difference on output.
Totally.
And so we're doing that kind of thing right now. We're also using latest generation factory management approaches that are going to help make the factory more efficient with even the headcount we have today. And so you'll see more of that as we roll in those technologies and some of the additional capital equipment that we're investing in. You're going to see increased output, reduced lead times, and I think the post-COVID labor challenges we've had over the years, I think will start to fade behind us. May not be the case for the rest of the industry. We definitely work closely with the engine overhaul providers because I think that's regional and each region's a little different. And I do think we have some areas that are going to struggle. They just seem like they have not emerged from COVID with the same trained workforce and available talent that they need,
Totally. You brought up a point of retention.
Right.
I know that aviation has always been, it's hard to retain good talent.
It is.
It's hard to find the good talent, and then it's hard to keep them there.
Yeah.
What is your guidance now from the top of what it's going to be like and what someone can expect it to be like working at Robinson, whether it's as an engineer, working on the production, working as a pilot?
Yeah. So a good example, this show, it's in our backyard, Anaheim, and very few of our staff had been to a Heli-Expo before. So this year we made the commitment, and we sent 70 or so of our employees here, and they're each day there's a different group of them here. And part of that is to help get them exposed to how big their impact is on the industry, to make them feel like they're part of something bigger than just the work they do every day at their desk.
Totally.
And I think that is such a valuable feeling to understand that at Robinson, we really are amplified 10,000-fold. I mean, the number of aircraft they're operating right now, at this minute, probably are in the thousands and thousands, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And our team feeds their businesses with parts and with support and technical information all day, every day. But they don't necessarily see the impact they have. So today, this show is a really important opportunity for that. Another big area for us too. We have a great opportunity to help develop and train folks and help them grow in their careers. It has not been a formal process for that in Robinson in the past, but one of the objectives I have for the human resources team is to start really understanding how can we grow people into their long careers.
Totally.
We really actually have a great story in terms of retention. I was at our employee dinner that celebrates our 20 and 30-year employees, and it was a huge dinner. Lots of people that have been with us really since the 44 and the sort of the early success of Robinson. But the hard part is, how do I make sure that people hired today make it to their 30? That's the hard challenge, and I think we need to build programs that appeal to a younger generation and some of the information that they crave, the things that they want to be comfortable that this is the place for their career. So you're going to hear more from us on that outwardly and publicly, but also inward in our business. We're going to make it much easier for them to be connected and engaged.
One of the things that I've seen just working with you is this idea of really starting to revitalize the brand a little bit to the public.
Right.
Obviously, there's been tremendous success. 14,000 units sold. Yeah. It's incredible. What are some of the initiatives that you're taking by now kind of accelerating the brand into the 21st century?
Sure.
And I think, I'm curious to hear if you think that not only will that help drive sales, but maybe get people excited about being involved in this industry.
Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, there's really several stakeholders that we're aiming at with these types of efforts. One is gratitude for the people who have built small family businesses all around the world. So we have this campaign, this show that is the Climb Higher video series, and it's intended to be a longer-term commitment, not just the 2 shows that we've unveiled at the show, but more over time. We'll tell this story of small operators that do amazing things with our aircraft, and they've been innovative and disruptive in their own ways. They have a little bit of Frank Robinson in them, and sort of their individual market segments. And so I think we want to tell those stories where we can put the money into that storytelling, where the small businesses oftentimes couldn't tell their own story that way. So we're definitely going to do more of that. But that's also resonating with our employees and getting them engaged that, wow, we do some important things. So there's employees who care a lot about the environment. We are very heavily active in making sure that farm-to-table food is available to the population of the world, so our aircraft are essential in making that possible. Same thing when you talk about conservation, animal preservation, and safety. We are actively involved in counter-poaching. Our aircraft really make those safari reserves in Africa safe for the animals, and they use the aircraft that we build to do that. So we're going to tell those stories more and more, and I think overall you'll see us more at trade shows and events, air shows. We're going to be more active in kind of being physically present at more shows so that people can hear that story from us directly. But we're also going to amplify our dealers. So we have a great dealer network, 130 dealers or so out in the world, and we're trying very hard to get them to locally message, and we'll give them the materials and the content and help support them in their sort of growth of their businesses,
Yeah, I mean, I've been able to see some of the videos. They're amazing.
Yeah.
I talk about this often, and it was kind of an epiphany that I had recently of this idea that so much of our economy, world economy, is because of helicopters.
That's right.
We accomplish so much. We talked about at the dinner the other night.
Yeah.
Truly farm to table.
Oh, yeah.
The amount of ag, right?
Yep.
The amount of missions that keep ticking. What are some of the missions that you find kind of most fascinating that you've heard with Robinson
one of the things
helicopters?
that's up and coming, and I think is going to be a huge part of the future, 5G towers and infrastructure for cell towers, it is a perfect mission for helicopters, and we have customers that do training of long line and heavy lift, so utility work, and they use our aircraft to teach folks how to do precise assembly of these towers in reality, using a kind of a prototype tower. That kind of mission is obviously hugely impactful to the economy and couldn't be done without helicopters. There isn't a solution that gets that done another way. And I don't think when you consider all the technologies that are emerging from autogyros and eVTOLs, none of those can do that mission like a helicopter.
Totally.
So I think this is one of those things that is uniquely our turf, and we're going to reinforce that. We've got a great product in the R66 cargo hook variant that we're going to start to promote more and share more. Overall, we have about 1,500 66s on order. Probably, of them, 1,350 or so are in service, and many of those could be used in these ways to help grow the 5G, network all across the globe. So that's just one example, but so many others that are outstanding in ag and developing this you mentioned farm to table, but it takes the form of pollinating rice in Texas, or dealing with the spray needs for all sorts of seed crops around the world. So these are things that you couldn't do it with a drone or with another aircraft type. It's just not. It's not capable of that today,
Yep, can't get rid of us yet, right?
Right. We want to keep them safe, though, and so I think you'll see safety innovations from Robinson that try to make that mission even more safe, because it is operating at a very low altitude, and it is always in the presence of wires and structures and things, and so we want to help them operate safer, and so that is an investment that we're going to make 100%. In the future.
I did a podcast recently with a guy named Hector from Rotor.
I know
AI.
Hector. Yep, great guy. Yep.
What is Robinson's stance on working with guys like Hector?
Yeah.
And I think there's another helicopter
that's
here
right.
that
They're
looks
in our
a lot
static.
like
They're in our
Robinson.
static. That's right.
So,
yeah.
What is your approach to that type of innovation using the Robinson product?
Yeah. So first, I think this is something again that Frank could be very proud of. The industry is got a lot of innovation, a lot of new technologies that can be brought to bear on both the growing market needs and some latent safety things that we've had over the years. So I think what Rotor's doing is right in line with how Robinson looks at the future. There's a period of time where they'll use those aircraft alongside existing aircraft for remotely piloted, high-risk work, and controlled airspace. And I think that's a really significant opportunity for us to learn about what works well in this sort of potentially pilot augmented environment. And it helps keep pilots safe in a very high-risk area from fires or from ag. And I think both those are areas that do have some risk features
100%.
and can only fly during certain hours. And I think theirs could open up more of the clock and cover more time. But I also think that in the future, there's going to be both. There's going to be manned and there's going to be unmanned assets or manned, remotely manned assets. And so I think we'll continue to offer the roadmap to both, and we'll collaborate with folks like Rotor so that the technology has a safe development path. And so we provide a lot of counsel to those guys to make sure that as they're progressing in their growth, that they understand what we've learned from our long-term development of aircraft and what the risks really are as you're certifying a product. So it's a very collaborative relationship, and it is with several other providers that are looking at either autonomy or advanced computer vision or electrification, all of which we are actively involved in and is part of what I think about every day, but it is not something that we think is the core value proposition of Robinson, which is the air vehicle itself. And collaborating with these folks is probably the best way to drive the industry forward.
100%. Obviously, it kind of feels like the future's here.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We've been talking about it for a long time. It's a little bit of a weird time, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, especially I had a great conversation with Hector.
Right.
But it's weird to have this idea of taking the pilot out of the seat.
Yeah, yeah.
But then you look at operations like fire and ag. I see the need. I see that purpose. For you, specifically at Robinson, what does the future look like kind of long term?
Sure.
Next 5-10 years, Robinson industry whole.
Yeah, so I'll zoom out to 50 because I always think about it.
Okay.
I learned a lot. I did a lot of business in China, and you can kind of see the effect of thinking 50 years ahead.
I like that.
But I think Robinson has made it through the first 50, and the next 50 is my job. So I'm working very hard at making sure the vision is built today. But I think one of the things that we talked about, these technologies that are emerging, many of them will find a home in our industry and will find a way to help us grow even to the next level. So it could add a zero to the total number of aircraft out there.
Sure.
And I think that could be game-changing for the whole world, because we all know that vertical lift brings things that the average person in even the developed world won't even get a chance to ride in our products or won't even get a chance to directly benefit. They won't see the opportunity. They may eat the food and they may experience all the great technologies that come from it, but they won't necessarily realize that.
100%.
So I do think if it's a gateway that allows more folks to get access to our life-saving, our industry growing and entrepreneurial driving technology, I think that's great. And so over the 50 years, you're going to see Robinson make sure that the technology has a safe entry point, that we work closely with the best in breed of AI developers and computer vision developers and electrification, motor and battery developers, all of which we are in discussions with today. So we know the industry quite well about who the players are that actually have the best chance of success. They're using our product already. Most of them have long gone through the trade study that leads to Robinson has accessible parts, has simple construction, has repairable construction. So if you have a mishap in flight test for those development programs, very easy to swap components and get back in the air. So we are the best test bed for all this technology development. So over the 50 years, I expect that to be still a huge part of who we are and what our value is to the industry. But in the meanwhile, we have so many markets that haven't even been touched by any helicopters successfully. India is a great example, one that I'm very passionate about. I think we are perfect built for a region like India where they have a need to get from major metropolitan city to another, and they need the ability to do it with less time on the road because the infrastructure can be quite congested there and challenging. I think our aircraft is supportable and field sustainable in a region where you don't have immediate access to maintenance and support at every spot you stop. So I think we are uniquely qualified for that region, like we are in Australia, which has huge, immense distances that are covered, and Robinson is in every town all across the country. So I think growing into places like India, we could significantly change that economy's trajectory as it grows into the most wealthy and most populous country in the world. I think there's a lot that can be done to help develop that region. So we see regional growth over a 50-year time scale, that in that 50-year timeline, I think we've got 10,000 plus aircraft that we could sell into India and help develop all sorts of entrepreneurial uses, things we haven't even thought of in the U.S. because it hasn't fit our unique needs.
Sure.
So I do think there's a lot of opportunity there. We also are optimistic about the growing needs in places like Western Africa, where there is mining industry that we already support parts of.
Okay.
But I think a coordinated strategy in sort of developing that region is going to be good. So over that sort of same sort of time scale, these regions that have been kind of emerging economies for a long time, we think will develop around the helicopter industry. And so I'm excited about that. New products is going to be a big focus for us. So, in a 50-year timeline, you could see us filling quite a few more spots on the product roadmap.
Interesting.
And I do think that you will see product that fit the Robinson family that today are probably neglected by the other major OEMs. We build field-supportable, field-sustainable aircraft that can be managed in remote locations, and you can build your whole business around that. You don't have to sweat having a backup aircraft available because our aircraft are that reliable. And we see it today in all parts of the globe. So I think you'll see product where the economics and the field requirements of these aircraft are met today by 40, 50, 60-year-old aircraft. We can go right after those. So if you think about the OEMs that fly heavy utility, most of them, they're built using aircraft that were designed 2 generations ago. We can do that today. Build latest safety standards in, and we can certify a product that is robust, affordable, and scalable. And that's all things I think are going to hit several more open spots on the product roadmap. So look for that. That's going to probably be in the short term. As soon as we possibly can, we will have products that fill some of these gaps in the market.
Are you going to launch those products on the podcast here?
Oh, maybe maybe a future podcast. Maybe
okay.
A future podcast. Absolutely. I mean, it's exciting. I love product development. It's one of my most exciting things about coming to Robinson was I know that we have the resources and we have the focus where we can decide what we want to develop, and there's less stakeholders that sort of weigh in as, well, maybe we'll measure the R&D spend this year because we're trying to manage, performance of a public company. In reality, private company has so many advantages with the ability to say, look, we are going to do this thing, and we're going to make it the highest priority of the business, and we're going to get it accomplished quicker by a long shot than any of the competitors could. So we can do that.
Totally. Obviously, we've talked about 14,000 aircraft sold. There's a lot of Robinson love, and a lot of people that use your product every day, like we've talked about. A lot of people that have truly invested their entire life into Robinson, whether they're service centers, flight schools, other operators, your employees. Change can be difficult, right? I think we're all used to that. They're changing the name of the expo.
Right.
It's a big change.
Yeah.
And there's difficultness that goes about that.
Absolutely.
What are you thinking right now?
Yeah.
What is your message to those people like myself that have been learning in Robinson and been around Robinson forever, your employees that have been there for 30 years?
Yes.
What is the message to the community of Robinson love out there that things are going to change, but they're going to change in the right direction?
Absolutely. So this was a great discussion at the dealer meeting. I mean, these are folks who've been with us from the very beginning. Some of them have multi-decade experience, and they invested in Frank back then. That's when it all started. So the message that I've shared with all of them is I spent a year of dedicated time this last year learning a lot about Robinson. I started studying Robinson 10 years earlier when I was developing the 505. I was part of the team at Bell that developed that aircraft as a competitor to the 66. And we studied the business here very, very closely to understand all the good things that allowed it to be so successful across all kinds of demographics. So I am very appreciative of the recipe that makes Robinson so unique and so special in the industry. But there's obviously areas that we can improve. And I think a good example is this emerging technology, how to navigate that in our space so that it benefits our customers and doesn't displace them or hurt them in a surprise or sort of a blindside the industry in some way, is a big part of what I think we bring with the new sets of folks on the team. We are more connected to that technology space than probably the other folks that have been involved in Robinson in the past. So I think it's exciting for them. We spent a good bit of time in the dealer meeting talking about like what will change. Well, I think some of the things will change will be process improvements that make it easier to buy parts, things that make it easier to communicate back and forth so that the dealer network is more aware and faster about things that are changing in the fleet or emerging field issues or supply chain issues. Communication is a big part of what I've found successful in previous businesses, and that has not been our primary focus at Robinson in the past. So I think we're going to increase that. So it's generally changes that people crave. They really do want to feel engaged, So even when we did the horizontal stabilizer, we did a pre-release to the dealers ahead of time, and that was the first time that we had gone out and said, hey guys, here's a notice that's coming out. You might be surprised by this. So here's a couple days for you to digest it first,
nice.
And I think that's the kind of stuff that is good change, and it is something that they see. So I think we're going to earn their trust every day with this sort of new perspective. But a lot of it also starts with making sure that it's open doorway, and we can listen to all their feedback. because many of them have had long-standing ideas, things that would make their businesses grow faster and things that they think would help our business grow as a whole. And we just, for resource reasons, we have not been able to action all those suggestions. I have a lot of bandwidth. I'm super excited about this. And so for several years of this, I'm confident that there's going to be an endless supply of great ideas that just need to be focused on and executed. And so I'll start earning their trust that way. You know?
Yeah, I think it's incredible. I think sometimes it's easy in any business to kind of have the blinders on of like, this is the plan.
Right.
And in my very small business, it's not Robinson. Something that I've tried to do is actually have this idea that my team may see more than I do.
Yes, that's right.
And their feedback is always welcome, because it's this idea of like, I might not be seeing or hearing, right?
That's exactly right.
In my sales business, they're on the front lines.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily on those front lines. So being able to take that feedback
absolutely
and implementing it. Sometimes you have a different view of the business that they may not have.
Absolutely.
But I think it's great to hear that you're open to feedback.
Yeah.
The guys and the gals out there that are using the product, selling the product. I think that collectively everyone can just continue to make Robinson better and better, which is pretty exciting. And it's cool to hear that you have that open mind.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some great leaders and role models in the past that have the kind of overriding approach I have is servant leadership is a core of totally who I am. And I think in general, if you come at it from the perspective of you want to help them do their job better, you want to make their life easier, safer, more manageable, those are all things that it starts with, how can I help you? And it opens the door for their ideas and all the things that you approach them as you're serving them. And it gives a great opportunity for employees to weigh in on all sorts of things in the business. And a lot of them have really seen the ground level in all the growth and development, so they have great ideas. They just need to be amplified, And so it's a great privilege to be part of Robinson, because there's such history there and so many people who've been around it from the beginning that I can use that as a part of how we go and tackle the future, and it's exciting.
Yeah, it's really cool. I would be remiss not to talk about it. I love the Robinson product, and I'm not just saying that because I'm sitting here right now. Again, Robinson has a special place. The other night, having dinner with you and Kurt, it was a neat moment for me, because it was this idea of like, wow, like I'm sitting next to the guy whose dad did this.
Yes. We're one generation removed from the founder. It's amazing, right?
And made my helicopter dream possible.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I also look at it just with my knowledge that I have now. The flight school up at Hillsboro, that's where I went. Thousands and thousands of incident-free hours.
That's right.
I have done 3 years straight of full-down training in R22s as a young guy, actually.
Right.
Safely. I know that the product's safe. I know that.
Yeah.
But it seems to be that there's a polarizing. Robinson is polarizing in the community.
Right.
Specifically for a lot of those guys and gals that haven't trained in the aircraft. What do you tell those individuals about your commitment and Robinson's commitment to safety?
Sure. So, I mean, the first thing is part of the reason why we are so vertically integrated and we have so much inspection that goes into the build of our product is we know our role in the safety of these aircraft. It's where it all starts. You have to have good parts that allow for an operator to put it into a good, safe operation, and the pilots inside to have good preparation and good operational decision-making. We know we are an essential ingredient in the safety process, and so we are absolutely playing a big role in that today. But we also emphasize things like the safety course and the fact that we've been doing that for most of the life of the company, and we basically give that away, and it's a service we provide to the industry to help keep pilots focused on the right things when they're flying our aircraft. And so it's not training in the classical sense. It's not all this sort of type training you'd get in maybe other programs, but it does come out with safer pilots that make better decisions because they've seen things that have gone wrong in Robinson in the past. So I think, in a big way, we do owe it to the operators who run missions like Hillsboro, where they have such safe operations, and the videos that you'll see for Climb Higher feature the Quantum team in Arizona that have run so many safe years of operation and produced so many pilots that are safe by training. I think we just have to tell their stories more so that folks understand that these are workhorse aircraft that operate in all kinds of tough places. Some of the safety issues are related to how these are used in really challenging environments like ag or like utility inspection or remote relief work, all kinds of places where it is a challenging environment. So it's a permanent forever calling that we have to go after and improve the safety of the underlying aircraft. So keep improving safety, keep understanding all the things that lead to accidents in the fleet, and we invest in that. So our R&D year after year after year is trying to make things safer. And so each change we make on the aircraft generally is pulling the safety of the industry up. And we know that it ripples through the fleet quickly. So you'll see more of that from us. I mean, going forward, we have a strong belief in improving the safety of our existing fleet, but also new aircraft that we develop will have an inherent step above all the peers in safety investment from the beginning. So you're going to see some industry firsts from us in the years ahead, and I think it's exciting to be at the ground level of that. But it's all built on safety. I mean, it really is. The industry cannot scale to 20,000 and 30,000 and 40,000 Robinson aircraft without a safe foundation. And so we want to make sure the customers know that we take our role seriously, and we're going to help prepare them more for the future. One of the things you'll see coming up this year, in fact, you're going to the safety course next week.
I am.
But in the weeks ahead, we're going to be unveiling a safety course aimed at getting instructors more prepared to teach in a Robinson.
100%.
A little different than the focus we've had in the past of just operating safely. But we need people to teach safely. And that's the kind of thing that we're investing in. Again, these are not parts of how we make money. This is how we spend money. And so I think truly safety is a investment for us, not a pastime or not a part-time job. It's an investment in a major part of our program.
And I think that's like what the bigger flight schools, and maybe some of the smaller ones too, have done a really good job at, is being able to teach people how to safely teach in Robinson helicopters. Right. I've said it before in the podcast. It's a funny idea of being a 200-hour pilot. Yeah. And then going and teaching a brand new student. Right. That was intense for me. Yeah. And I think at that time I was 20 years old. Yeah. It's a lot of responsibility. But at least the school that I went to, and I think many schools, because it's an industry, we've all gotten better. Right. They segment it, right? You're not doing advanced auto rotations
day one as on day CFI,
one. No, you might not do a single auto rotation for 3 months. Right. Right. You know, and I think that's. I think we all play a role in making better pilots, making better decisions.
Absolutely.
Most of the time, I try to keep myself kind of up to date on what's killing people, what's hurting people, what's causing accidents. And it's oftentimes pilots putting themselves in positions that are either outside of their comfortability or their skill, or outside of the aircraft's limitation.
Absolutely.
I mean, plain and simple, I think we have a responsibility as pilots, to step up our game, right?
Yeah, we've been. It's unfortunate to see, and our cockpit cameras are helping us see more and more of the complexion of these accidents as they happen, and it's one. Just sad trend is distracted piloting is seemingly becoming a bigger and bigger thing. And so I think it's a good example where we can't say that enough. Even in automotive today, it's a big problem for distracted driving.
I'm guilty of it.
Right. So I think these are things that the industry is facing more now than ever before because of the common cell phone culture that we have all around the world. So I do think there are things like that where it's going to be a messaging and a training and a culture that prevents those accidents from happening. But we have to work together on it. It's an industry challenge that isn't just a Robinson problem. We do see accidents in the Robinson because of our prolific fleet. Aircraft are all over, but honestly, we all need to work together to improve the piloting fundamentals.
I think so too. Yeah. You bring up an interesting point of distraction.
Right.
I think we live in an extremely distracted world. Oh yeah. I'm connected to my phone. My wife gets upset with me actually all the time. Right. At night, I'll be on Facebook, like, just scrolling through. We're always distracted. We're always stimulated. I went to Embry-Riddle for 1 year, and it was actually around the time when they were introducing glass cockpits. Sure. And even as a young pilot without a ton of experience at that point, I was thinking to myself, like, man, I wonder if there's a point where there's too much technology. Absolutely. Sometimes that can be a distraction. Yeah. What is your stance on... Is there too much that could distract? Yeah. Is there too much in a cockpit?
I think on the whole, the workload enhancements that can be brought by a smart and well-constructed cockpit with digital aids is really good. And it offers redundancy in ways that would prevent what has been a classical failure of an instrument acting up and the pilot improperly reacting to that or not being aware of a problem that's progressing in the instruments. I think those examples, the huge advantage comes with glass cockpits. They are smarter and they have additional degraded modes and logic that help protect the pilot from a single instrument failure leading to some significant catastrophic event. But I do think in a VFR aircraft, you got to be careful. The amount of glass and the amount of things that keep their head in really does prevent them from keeping their head out. And I think we talked at dinner actually with the media dinner that we had about the amount of folks that get the helicopter terrain avoidance, and the very first thing they do is, how do I turn it off? How do I mute the alerts, right? And I think they're signs that we haven't done something
100%.
right. And I really think the same things about electronic flight bags, that I really believe that the future of avionics needs to realize that as long as people are still bringing iPads and EFBs into the aircraft and suction cupping them onto the primary view, the thing that we work very hard to keep clear, they put it right in the primary field of view. If they're doing that, there's things more we can do. We can do better integration in the glass so that it is more integrated, and flight planning can be done in a way that doesn't distract or drive additional obstruction in the cockpit. I think we have work to do there. So I know in the years ahead, Robinson's going to spend time looking at safety enhancements that keep the focus on the VFR flight and how we can best maximize view out and view of traffic. Obviously, things like drones are becoming more common in the air, and you got to watch for them. Wires still kill a lot of great pilots, so we need to make sure people are able to keep eyes out and potentially use some of this new technology to better enunciate it to the crew in a way that doesn't distract and doesn't create nuisances. So I think those are the kinds of innovations I'm super excited about. I think the technology is just about there, not quite there, but very close. And so we're working with some of the best in the industry on how that can transform the next level of safety and safety awareness. But to your original point, I think glass could, if not done well, can be quite distracting to a VFR pilot. And so we are sensitive to that, and we're working hard to make sure that the next generation of product does not have that sort of challenge of too much or too little. You need to have a very, very elegant and smartly constructed glass cockpit.
100%.
Yeah.
I like what Robinson's done with the utility bar mount on the pilot
Good
side.
example. Yep.
I love you can have a hard mounted, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, GPS, like the 750 or the 650, that's there mounted.
That's right.
We've also seen not just distraction, but suction cups fail.
They do.
And that could go into your pedals. It could affect other areas of the control. It could fly out if you have the door off.
Absolutely.
Could we anticipate any cool things coming down the pipe that could maybe go hand in hand with the utility bar mount?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good example, though. We've made more and more improvements to that. Wire cable management as part of that, because people obviously need to keep their EFB powered. And so we've done great things to make sure that those don't dangle and hang out and cause additional problems with the pedals. But it's a good example. We're constantly looking at that and trying to stay relevant. So we have the latest USB ports, and we have the latest sort of power installations for those, so that you have what you need, so you're not distracted by adding another plug or an adapter or anything like that. Make it as lean and simple as possible so customers are safe when they're using their EFB. So there's things, whether it's the future of tablets and the future of sort of EFB technology itself, we'll be right in the middle of that. And I think the best part about our engineering organization is, since we're so commercially driven, we drive the priorities on these things. And 100%. So as customers share with us a new way they're using the aircraft or a new way they're using the EFB technology, we will be the first to adopt that in our production line. And our engineering team, one of the things that's a treasure about Robinson, and again, I probably should have led with this, but our engineering team, we have a program to help make them pilots. And most of our engineers are pilots.
That's awesome.
And it gives us, it's an incredible advantage. And I think, I've been in other places, and it's difficult for some organizations to make that commitment and say we're going to enable them to go and get their license and invest in them. But for Robinson, that's been one of Frank's things from the very beginning. So our engineering team they are incentivized, they're encouraged, and they tend to stay current and operate. They take lunchtime. A lot of times they're out there flying with one of the instructor pilots, and it's a phenomenal opportunity. In fact, for the show today, when we flew the aircraft in, it was all engineering team members that flew it in.
Wow.
So that's the kind of thing that Robinson uniquely has, and so because of that, they're constantly confronting, well, how would I want to operate 100%. The aircraft, and what do these things mean to my safety, right? So I think it makes a stronger engineering core, and it is one of those advantages that I don't think the other OEMs can even do that.
Well, I think it's a challenge in not just helicopters, but a lot of industry where it's like there's an engineer that has an idea.
Yeah.
And then there's an end user.
Right.
And it may sound really good over here, but that end user may not love that.
That's it.
Are you flying?
So I have epilepsy, which keeps me out of licensed flight.
I didn't know that.
Yes, I'm absolutely willing to share it with people. I know in the world there's a lot of folks who go through the journey of epilepsy. It's a challenge. For me, when I was young, I had a seizure in sixth grade, and I remember being kind of ostracized by the other kids because it's a tough thing. Yeah, but so look, life happens, and actually I'm here today in the role that I'm in because of that seizure.
Sure.
And I had a series of them in my kind of junior high and high school, and it directed me away from my dream, which was to fly the space shuttle and go do the Air Force Academy and all that stuff. Instead, my backup plan was engineering, and so I ended up going down the whole different path. And I think I'm where I'm supposed to be. And one of the great things about the Robinson, environment is we can fly the aircraft all the time. So I can get in the cockpit with any number of my teammates that can do can protect the aircraft, so that if I do have a seizure, which I haven't had one in a long time, so it's not an active problem, but it is a permanent sort of risk factor, right?
Of course.
But it is one of those situations where I have plenty of support at the factory, and we get to fly quite a bit for visiting suppliers or visiting customers or all sorts of internal needs, and it's great. I get to be around that. I had a stint for several years doing flight simulators, and so I got a lot of time flying jets and flying helicopter sims, and I love that. And I think it made me a better engineer and made me appreciate more the hard part about being a pilot, and particularly if you're doing it in a line role where you're doing it every day, and it's how do you sustain safety at the core of who you are when it's every single day, and you're doing work that is hard, exhausting, not always ergonomically the easiest. No. You got a sore back, and you get those are all things I'm sensitive to, and I've been around enough to know that that's part of my value add to the business, is helping the industry and helping our business fix those things. I don't have to be a pilot to necessarily do those things. I wish I could have been a pilot. Certainly, I would have loved that. Would have been a great career. But I'm where I need to be, Yeah,
100%. Interesting enough, my wife has epilepsy.
How about
that? She's actually since had surgery. Okay. They removed the part that was causing her epilepsy.
Wow.
So she doesn't want to be a pilot, so it's not a big deal for her. Yeah. But that's interesting to hear, and I think it's
more common than people realize.
Yeah, 100%.
And there's a lot of forms of it too. So people don't say it all depends on when it starts to happen in your life. And so I had it young, and so that you can sometimes grow out of it. But there's these things that are about the brain that are so difficult to really know conclusively. So
it's wild.
It's challenging. Yeah.
My wife had seizures for 2 years before she told anyone.
Oh wow!
And she didn't have your traditional seizures. She had a petite mal.
Yeah, the petit stuff. Yeah,
and it was like she didn't look like your typical quote unquote seizure.
Sure.
That could be a different podcast, I suppose.
Yeah.
But that's no. I think I think it's really neat because we have a lot of younger people that listen to this podcast.
Right.
I have had things go my way in life, and I've had things not go my way.
Yep.
And it seems like when things don't go my way, it can hurt.
Oh, yeah.
However, I get directed back to a path.
Yes.
And then I look at it like, oh, my goodness. If that never happened, I wouldn't be here today.
That's right.
So I think that's really cool. Obviously, you had dreams of you had big dreams.
I did.
Yeah, being an astronaut.
One of my classmates is actually on the space station right now.
That's incredible.
From school, and I would love to trade places with her, but not today. Today, I love everything about Heli-Expo and the place we're in here. So it's sort of those are things that your life is not a straight line, and you have to be prepared for some of the setbacks. And in the end, if you keep fighting, one of the things that actually Kurt voiced about the culture of Robinson and what made Frank so successful was he was absolutely undefeatable. People would try to knock him down. He crashed one of the first ones into the ocean, and they succeeded in recovering it and turning it into a flying vehicle again. And these kinds of stories are like he just would not be taken down, right? And I think you have to have that mindset in any successful enterprise, but I think aviation in particular, you got to be prepared to fight for the hard stuff, and keep going, keep pushing.
10 years ago, if I would have told you you're going to be the CEO of an OEM, Robinson Helicopters, would you believe me?
No, it's funny. My team 10 years ago, we unveiled the 505 at Anaheim.
Okay.
In this show here,
full circle,
right? And it was to sort of knock out the 66 and grow and grow and grow, right?
Oh, the irony.
Great program, fun experience. All my teammates have been messaging me all day. Congratulations and stuff. It is really interesting to have this happen, kind of in a 10-year gap like that. But I'll just say again, life is so unpredictable, and you never know who's going to be your peers or your competitors or your boss or your subordinates. It's all, life is a really interesting journey. So treat everybody with respect. Try very hard to leave a mark on everybody, and that's the best you can do.
Producer Zach and I were talking about that. I hired him back in the day as a CFI.
Oh, awesome.
And I was I was young. I had a little salt and vinegar in me.
Right, early, yep.
And man, Zach did a great job, got the job. But I thought about, someday actually he could be hiring me.
Absolutely.
And I've actually had that happen in my career. So it's so interesting where it's like you really got to, and it shouldn't just be to get a job or to excel. You should just try to be a great person.
That's right. Everywhere you are, I had a great mentor said, bloom where you're planted, right? No matter where you are, exceed expectations and do better. And I think that's something that can really make the difference for someone in this career, really.
Yeah, no, 100% I agree.
Yeah.
David, HAI, your first HAI and your last HAI,
right? Yeah.
As the CEO
That's
of
right.
Robinson.
That's right. Yeah.
Next year, you'll be at Verticon.
Yeah.
What does this show mean to you? What does it mean to Robinson? And what does this week look like? Because, I mean, we're like in hour 2 of day 1.
That's right. Right. We're early. Yeah, we've got a great lineup of meetings with partners and potential partners. Some of the growth strategies we talked about earlier and helping to develop the market around the world and the technologies that are going to be the bedrock of the future, built on Robinson. These are things that our aircraft are built on. The future technology is built on our aircraft. And so I think this show will just reinforce that and grow that across a number of different areas. You can see it at our static exhibit or our Rotor Safety Expo, the sponsorship we have with the Vertical Association International. Got to change my reference. It's hard.
I've been doing some promo stuff today. I'm like, what is it again?
So hard, yeah. But it's great. This show, we're featuring a lot of aircraft, a lot of different versions. Got a police aircraft. We have the unmanned rotor technology aircraft. We, of course, have on the display all 3 horizontal stabilizers, including the 22 that's not yet approved, but will be soon. So we're showing off all these new investments and features, and then meeting with a lot of our great customers and telling their story. The Climb Higher series is a big part of this show's media and run-up, and so we want people to see that and learn more about what our customers do every day. So it's exciting. This is home turf for us, too, so it's nice. We got a ton of folks that are touring the factory today and tomorrow. So we have a lot of folks that are out there visiting Torrance and seeing the magic of our great helicopter factory,
Yeah, I'm really excited. Next week I'll be heading down. Right. Zach actually and I are both you're not attending the course, sorry, Zach.
Yes, but you're sort of attending. Yeah.
He's adding support. We're so excited to be there. David, again, congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you for allowing me to have this conversation with you on this platform.
Yeah.
I think our listeners love these kinds of stories.
Yeah.
And it's truly amazing to think about just everything to get to this point.
Oh, yeah.
And so congratulations. Have a wonderful show.
Thanks, Halsey.
I wouldn't want to see what your calendar looks like for this show. I can only imagine, but thanks for joining the Helicopter Podcast.
Appreciate it.
This is in-person podcasting, guys, from HAI. Next year, it will be in-person podcasting from Verticon. We're at the Vertical booth. It's so exciting. It's never been done, and it's just a really neat thing. This is the first time I've not been in a helicopter face-to-face doing a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, I'm a nervous energy guy, so I'm not bouncing too bad. So, David, I couldn't ask for a better guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate
to our
it.
listeners, thanks for listening.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
Take care.
Hey, podcast listeners. My name is Halsey Schider, and I'm the principal broker and owner of Helicopter. Helicopter is a new age, data-driven, helicopter-specific sales brokerage, bringing helicopter listings to new heights. At Helicopter, we utilize digital positioning, paid advertising, and our large network of industry professionals to move your helicopter quickly and efficiently. Unsure the value of your helicopter? Lucky for you, Helicopter offers a complimentary market evaluation. All you have to do is contact the team today. Are you ready to take your helicopter listing from Mayday to payday? Easy. Fill out the contact information below, and a Helicopter pilot agent will reach out shortly. Helicopter. List it, sell it, done.